Okay guys, today I'm gonna show you some of my favorite things to forage in the spring. It's all here on the property and we're just gonna go for a nice little walkabout and I'll show you everything. Okay. Hey everyone, this is my friend Brittany. She has come over to do this beautiful walkabout with us and share some of her knowledge as well.
I'm a registered holistic nutritionist and a birth doula. And yeah, I'm super stoked to learn things that I haven't learned, like learning how to garden and actually like forage and harvest.
It's an exchange of learning. There's things that I get to teach you, which feels so beautiful, and things that you get to teach me, which feels so beautiful, and I'm just super grateful for it, so.
I'm grateful too.
All right, so this is ground ivy. I absolutely love this plant. It's in the mint family, which is really cool. And the leaf pattern is quite nice. It's got like a little bit of a fuzziness to it, but it's really quite special. And you can see that it has a square stem as well. So when you're looking for it, it always has this perfectly square stem to it, which is really lovely. The flowers are also edible. Oh, so we gotta get it. The key to having these perfect is you pull it out with the white end still on it. Yes. And then you take the tip to your tongue and you can taste its nectar. It's so sweet. Brendan, you want one?
Just eat it?
Yeah, you just eat it. Yeah, so this is such a beautiful plant. I love it. And its ground cover is really wonderful too, because from a gardener's standpoint, it's one of those things that grows like a weed. It gives amazing cover. It's great for the bees. It does a whole bunch of wonderful stuff, and it makes it a little bit trickier for the weeds that we don't like to pop through because it doesn't give it as much space, which I love because, you know, if anyone's seen any of my episodes, you know how Buttercup is the bane of my existence. So,
It tastes like honey.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Because
like pollen, right?
Because this is what bees will make honey out of, right?
Yeah.
They take this nectar.
Yeah.
It's so sweet.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
That's so cool.
Yeah. All right, moving on. This is sheep sorrel, which I love so much. There's French sorrel that we have here and wood sorrel, but this stuff here is sheep sorrel, and you can see it because it's shaped more like a sword.
Whoa.
Right? And like wood sorrel is shaped more like a clover, and the French sorrel has large leaves, which we can talk about over there as well, but it tastes like a sour apple.
Like a sour green apple.
Yeah, and it's so beneficial for your tummy. When I make a salad mix, when I'm running around the yard foraging for a salad, I try and think about the different levels of flavor. Some sour, some sweet, some bitter, some juicy, and that's kind of how I try and play it out usually. So this is one of my favorite things to put into my salad mixes. But yeah, it spreads by roots and it'll go. So you can dig it up and transplant it into other places when you want to save it. But it also spreads by seed. So if you want to, you can capture the seed when it goes and then you can sprinkle it around where you want to. And it's another one of those really abundant ground covers that gets really thick and dense and is great for sort of choking out the other weeds and locking in moisture and doing a whole bunch of good things. Like even this right here, this whole piece is all sorrel right here.
Did you plant these last year? Or
No.
Did they were just on the property?
No, sorrel is just naturally on the property. So sorrel, like the nettle, is actually native to British Columbia. It's something that grows wild here all over the place, whereas some of the other plants like our dandelions, our ground ivy, that sort of stuff is actually brought in from other places. It's been here so long that it's a part of the ecosystem and it thrives and it does wonderful stuff. But a lot of those plants that we really do love didn't originate here, but I think that's okay anyways for the most part. I did mention how there's a whole bunch of different kinds of sorrel, and one of the other kinds of sorrel that we have on the property is actually French sorrel, and it's just right over here. It's not native to BC, but it's another really, really beautiful, big leafy green this time that is just as sour and just as lovely. Okay, so we didn't plant this one here either. This is just sort of, I think, a freebie from whoever farmed here in the previous years. It's a beautiful French sorrel, and it spreads quite actively as well by seed, and you can spread it from division and stuff as well. But it too is shaped like a sword, just like the sheep sorrel was, and it's just as delicious.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Right? It's like slightly less bitter, way more juicy, and it's just like, it almost is a little more subtle. It's still got those same sour notes, but it's just like a little bit more subtle, and it's so good for you. Like, these plants are loaded with vitamins, minerals, like all the nutrients that your body needs, and it helps your digestion so much. You want to try this one, Brendan? He's flaring his nostrils like, why are you making me do this? I chose to leave these ones here. This actually is where I planted our asparagus, and I surrounded them with strawberries as well. So we have strawberries all over here acting as our ground cover that's gonna spread. Our asparagus comes up tall, and then these sorrel I've just kind of left in beautiful clumps all over the place. So, I mean, I think it's turning out beautifully, and it's really fun to be able to find these plants that are just sort of volunteering on the property. And then really the only thing I do to take care of them is just make sure that nothing swallows them back up, right? Because the brambles will swallow them up, all sorts of weeds and other things will swallow them up. So I didn't have to plant them, I don't have to sow seed. All I have to do is just protect them from the harsh things around them. And then they'll keep growing and growing for a long time.
So these kind of like with the asparagus and the strawberry, like they kind of work symbiotically to like help each other grow. Like,
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Love that. Yeah. And this is actually borage that's popping up here too. This is another hugely beneficial plant. I mean, I seeded these. I brought the borage. But she's a prolific seed spreader, so she's volunteered all over the dang place this year, which is great. Okay, so this is actually such a beautiful patch of nettles that was here long before we ever got here. And I've actually had to put up all these little sticks so that people would stop hurting them, but people just love to drive on it, walk on it. I mean, sirs, nettle is such a beautiful plant. I'm sure you've probably utilized it lots in your work, right? Because nettle is really good for women's health. It's good for so many things, and as a doula and a nutritionist, just so beautiful for all sorts of skin issues. It's good in teas, it's good in fritters. Oh my gosh, I make nettle fritters that are so deadly, so delicious. Like, there's a lot of things in this property, you know, the sorrel, the ground ivy, dandelions, all sorts of things that I put into salads and soups or my mashed potatoes. Oh my God. Chop up a bunch of sorrel and at the very end, mix it into your mashed potatoes.
Really?
So good.
Sounds good.
It's so good. But nettle is one of those things that I love to put into soups. I make sauces out of it. I make these beautiful foraged muffins that are just this like crazy, crazy beautiful green color and so good for you and so beautiful. They're flourless and just like absolutely lovely. If I'm gonna make a fresh nettle tea, what I'll do is I'll harvest a whole bunch of nettle, and then I will actually just take my kettle and I'll put all the nettle into a bowl. I pick the leaves all off, put them all into a bowl, pour the kettle water over top of it, allow it to actually sort of steam down the greens, like cook down the greens a bit. Then I strain it out, I eat the greens, and I drink the tea.
See, that's ideal, because like I just know like store-bought nettle, like the dried herb, and like using that and like giving that to clients and for myself. And
Yeah.
But actually just being like, no, I can just come out here and pick the leaves and do it that way. Like,
yeah, and it's actually really good for fertilizer as well because it holds on to so many minerals and nutrients in it and everything that you can ferment nettle just like you can comfrey and make fertilizer for your garden. So it's wicked in your compost, in all sorts of things. You can do a sort of chop and drop vibe for it if you're gonna be putting it and mulching it around things. But it is a plant that you have to be careful of. We maybe should have said that in the beginning of the explanation, but nettle is something that, stinging nettle is something that you definitely want to wear gloves for. In the springtime, I like to harvest the nettle tips because they're tender and delicious, and that's what I do a lot of my cooking with. Later in the season, I will give them a haircut and I'll cut them down even lower, and then that's what I'll use to dry and use for my tea for longevity purposes. But in the springtime is when you get these beautiful tender tips that you can just kind of pop off just like that. And those are the ones that we love to eat. And you can see how tender it is. And then when you get to here, like if you're looking, you can still use all of these leaves, but you can see how this has new bits coming out right here from it. So when you cut it down to where 2 more stems are gonna grow, you actually still allow it to go through its process. It's gonna grow more, it'll be a little shorter and a little bit bushier, but it's not like cutting it right off and harvesting it all and then not leaving enough of it for the bugs and the other biddies that, you know, really wanna have its benefits too.
Totally. So. One of the things that I think is really cool as well is that in nature, like even though, like I remember growing up as a kid and being like scared of nettles because you're told like, don't go near them, like, they hurt. But the cool thing about nature is that there's always like a remedy nearby for something like that. So like with the nettle patch right here, all over the property as well, there's plantains that grow. And those, like Emily, will say she'll baby bird someone because you can just like
I call it mama birdin'.
Yes.
I'll just mama bird it because you can pick plantain and kind of chew it up in your mouth if somebody gets a bee sting or a bug bite or anything like that, or even a scratch, you know, like say you're doing something and you get scratched or whatever, and you can actually chew it up and make it a bit of a paste and then put it on, and it instantly relieves that sting or that pain.
Yeah, it's like nature's remedy, you know, whether you have a digestion issue or if you got stung by nature, a bee or nettles, like there's always nature's remedy.
Yeah,
nearby.
Absolutely. And plantain is such a beautiful plant as well. Like I love plantain so much. It's really, really quite lovely. We'll find some of it around here.
It'll be nearby.
Yeah, it will be.
Find some?
Yes. Okay, so this is actually the plant that Brittany was mentioning right here. So this is plantain, and you can see these lines will run parallel on a plantain, whereas some plants will have the center, and then from the center line you'll have other bits that come out this way, but these they start at the base here and they run parallel together along the leaf. And there's actually a broadleaf plantain as well, so you can see the difference. This I call a narrow leaf plantain, and this I call a broadleaf plantain. Whether or not that's the technical term, I call this a narrow leaf plantain and I call this a broadleaf plantain, and they both have similar active ingredients. So yeah,
They exist like right next to the nettle.
So if you get stung by the nettle,
Right here.
yeah, if you get stung by the nettle, you can literally just take it and, I mean, this is not good TV, you know? And basically you just macerate it like that, and then if you had a sting on you or something, you could literally just put it onto your skin and it immediately will calm the stinging. Dandelions, we love them.
So much.
This is awesome. Like Brittany was mentioning before with the nettle, where, you know, when I was a kid growing up, it was much the same. It was like, oh, stay away from nettle, it hurts. Dandelions are one of those things that when I was growing up, it was always like, dandelions are the enemy, you know, like
Like a weed.
yeah, like my grandma sprayed pesticides all over them, and oh my God, it's raining so hard.
Do you want to just take them?
No, we're doing it.
Okay.
I think it's fun. Okay, so dandelions. This is one of those things that for a long time people have thought that dandelions were the enemy, but they're not. They're this beautiful powerhouse. The bees love them. They have deep roots. They pick up all these minerals and lovely stuff from deep within. Their leaves are edible. Their buds are edible. Their flowers are edible. Their roots are edible. So it's just such a beautiful powerhouse plant that, like, if you see this gal in your yard, don't spray her with pesticide. Don't dig her out. Don't mow her down. Let her bloom. Let her have her time and just let her be, because there's so much beauty that you can get from a dandelion. It's amazing. I use the flowers in recipes, in fritters, and all sorts of stuff. These buds, before a dandelion flower opens, there's little buds that pop out, and you can pickle them just like capers, and they're so delicious. I mean, the roots, you can dig up the roots and roast them and make teas and all sorts of beautiful stuff. Actually, I made us some iced tea, some dandelion root iced tea. I don't know if this might be a good time to take a break and maybe go drink it.
Sure.
But
We can talk more about dandelions while we do that.
while we drink the tea? Is that what we should do? Brendan's getting real wet. Okay, we're gonna head inside.
Let's do it.
Okay, so we came inside for a little bit of respite from the rain because it is actually pouring out there now. Like, it's really coming down. So I'm gonna make us some dandelion root tea, just like a nice iced tea. I just add a little bit of maple syrup to it to sweeten it up, and it's quite nice. And Brittany's gonna give you a little chat about some of the facts.
All right, dandelion facts. I love it. Just like Emily, I love dandelions. The roots can be used in a tea that is really good for balancing the liver, as well as, like, if you have anxiety and you drink a lot of coffee, then drinking dandelion root tea can be a good alternative. I use dandelion root tea to stop me from my coffee addiction and coming off of, like, anxious tendencies. It's incredible. It's got vitamin A, vitamin K, vitamin C. So not only is it, like, balancing your liver, but it's actually specifically good for you and makes you feel good afterwards instead of having that, like, anxious feeling after drinking a coffee. Yeah, it's, like, good for everyone. The bees need them too. Like,
When it's hot outside and we're working and we're doing all these things and we want to just sit down with some cold sweet tea, it just immediately livens you back up and feels so good. So, I don't know if I added enough maple syrup.
well, it smells like maple syrup. It smells really good. Maple syrup is really good for you too.
Maple syrup is good for you, which is like, for something to be so sweet and delicious and actually good for you, maple water.
Maple water.
Oh my God,
That's
maple.
like a luxury. Oh my gosh.
It's so good. Yeah. Same with birch water. Have you ever had birch water? It's so delicious. Oh my gosh. Okay. Cheers. Cheers. Cheers, Brandon. Sometimes I make him try things and he's like, I don't know. He tried fire cider. He did a fire cider shot with me.
Cider.
Whoa!
Oh man. We got some of that too. Well, I hope you liked what we got up to today. If you want to see me make some recipes out of the cool things that we foraged, just let me know in the comments and I'll make something cool happen. Have a great day.